Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the 10-game NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Tuesday, December the 29th. We do have a big Tuesday slate, so I really don't want to waste any time. Just before we do get started with the breakdown, guys, as always, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button down below. Hit the subscribe button as well if you are new here. We're getting very close to 21,000 subscribers, which is just an insane accomplishment. I can't thank you guys enough. All the people, all of you that come to the channel every day, that watch my videos, that leave a like, that leave comments. I greatly appreciate all your support. So hit that subscribe button if you are new here, if you haven't yet. And yeah, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at Tuesday's 10-game slate. We will start off at point guard like we always do. So at the top here, we got Russell Westbrook leading the pack, 9,700 in a matchup against the Bulls. So starting off with Russell Westbrook, I think this is a guy that we can pretty much play any night. It looks like Westbrook's going to be a monster this year with the Wizards, and I didn't really expect that to be anything different. Westbrook, really anywhere he's going to go, he's going to be a fantasy monster. He's just a guy that can stuff the stat sheet, can contribute in all categories. I mean, so far, through 2 games with the Wizards, he has a triple-double in both games. He's pretty much a walking 50, 60 fantasy points any night, and he has the upside to obviously put up more than that, especially if he starts knocking down some shots. We know the peripherals are going to be there. I think there's other guys I'd rather pay for on the slate, but I guess if you had to choose like a pay-up option at point guard, let's just say 8K and above between Westbrook, Curry, Ben Simmons, and SGA, I think Westbrook would be the guy I would prefer there. It would be close between him and Steph Curry. Curry I do like here. Finally had a big game last game against the Bulls. Played 36 minutes. It was finally a competitive game for the Warriors. They got blown out in their first 2 games this year, but finally we're in a close game. This should be a game that is close against the Pistons. These are 2 relatively bad teams, I would say. The Warriors, they should be better, but injuries have really, just kind of derailed them over these last few years. Curry is still an awesome player, though. He's going to be a fantasy monster on this Warriors team, a guy that can, put up 50, 60 DK points any night. Probably give the slight edge to Westbrook just because Westbrook, I would say Westbrook's not as scoring dependent as Curry, but Curry's a really good option as well. Ben Simmons, SGA, probably not going to be guys I really get to a ton of on this 10-game slate. I think there's just other ways I'd rather go at point guard. Ben Simmons, I played a lot of on the last slate. I believe it was Sunday. Once we got word that Joel Embiid was going to be out, I late swapped to a lot of Ben Simmons. I late swapped to a lot of Tobias Harris, to a lot of Dwight Howard, and that went terrible. All those guys did pretty bad except Tobias Harris. He was the one guy from Philly that actually did well, but yeah, I'm probably not going to be on Simmons here. Joel Embiid is expected back for this game, so really if I'm paying up at point guard, Westbrook and Curry are kind of the 2 guys I would look to, but I don't expect either ones to be like core studs for me or core plays. I think there's other ways I'd rather go at the position. Scrolling down, the guy I want to talk about is D'Angelo Russell. So he is 7,600 on DK, which I think is a very nice price tag for him. On Yahoo, he's coming in very affordable over there as well. He's at shooting guard, and he's only $30, so I really like Russell here. With Karl-Anthony Towns out for the Timberwolves, he's going to be out for, I believe, a couple of weeks. I'm expecting Russell to see a big usage bump with Towns off the floor. We saw last year, Russell did get some time with Towns off the floor last season, and he was very productive, was a usage monster, played big minutes. I mean, the offense is going to run through Russell without Towns. The only concern is that, this is definitely a game that could blow out. The Clippers are big favorites here at home. I'm worried about that for sure. They got blown out last game against the Lakers. Russell played terrible, only had 9 Draftkings points in 21 minutes. The blowout's a concern, but if this game stays close, it's probably going to be because of D'Angelo Russell, because he's putting up, such a big game. And this is a guy that has massive upside, and the offense is going to be running through him with Karl-Anthony Towns out. So at only 7,600, he didn't see a price bump for Towns being out. I think he's too cheap on both sides. I know he hasn't been great to start the season, but now with no Towns, Russell's going to have more opportunity than ever, more usage coming his way, and I'm expecting a big game from him here against the Clippers. I know it's a tougher matchup, but I'm just expecting Russell to have to do everything. He's going to take probably 20, 30 shots. If this game stays close, it's going to be because of D'Angelo Russell, and I don't really try and predict blowouts. Sure, you could maybe fade some of these Minnesota guys if you're worried about the blowout, but if this game does stay close, I feel like you're going to want some of these Minnesota pieces. With Towns out, there's just so much usage to go around because Towns is such a high usage player. So really like D'Angelo Russell. I think he's one of the clear beneficiaries with Cat out for the Timberwolves. And then, looking at other guys in the mid-range at point guard, Jimmy Butler is doubtful for today, so we will talk about some guys that benefit with Jimmy Butler expected to be out. Like, not much else stands out in the 7K range. I think Chris Paul is a fine option at home against the Pelicans. Really like that matchup. Should be a fast-paced game. Only 7,100 for Chris Paul. He is someone that you could look to in that mid-range. In the 6K range, I think Kobe White against the Wizards, obviously a very favorable spot there as well. This Washington team is going to be a team we look to attack. Guys facing Washington is going to be something, we want to attack all season. Washington is just, they're not a good defensive team. They're going to be a very fast-paced team this year, especially with the addition of Russell Westbrook. So I have some interest in Kobe White at 6,500. But then scrolling down below 6K, there's two guys I would say that I really like here that I think are going to benefit with Jimmy Butler out, and that's Goran Dragic at 5,800 and Tyler Hero at 5,700. I'm expecting Dragic and Hero to both benefit without Butler. We saw last year whenever Butler would miss games, when Butler was off the floor, both Dragic and Hero do see a bump in usage. Their fantasy production overall sees a boost as well. And Dragic is the guy that I think I would prefer between the two, but I have no problems playing both together. I like Dragic a lot on both sides, 5,800 on DK. Looking at Yahoo at their pricing, you got Dragic coming in at $24 over there. I think that is definitely a fine price for him as well. He's a guy I have a lot of interest in on both sides. So we've seen, this year and just even like last couple of years, Dragic is a guy that he's just a very productive player. He can score, he can get you assists, he can grab a few rebounds as well. He's a guy that doesn't need to play, 36 minutes to really hit his ceiling. We've seen the last two games for the Heat. He's only played 26 and 27 minutes and has still scored 37 and 40 Draftkings points. And the game against Orlando, Butler played. The game against the Pelicans, Butler played in that game as well, but I believe he got hurt at the start, I think he got hurt towards the end of the second quarter, and then he did not return for the rest of the game. So, Butler played for half of the Pelicans game, and he played for the Orlando game, and Dragic still had big games there. Now, without Butler, Dragic is going to see more opportunity, going to get more usage. The ball's going to be in his hands more. His assist percentage should see a boost as well without Jimmy Butler. Matchup against Milwaukee, Milwaukee's a good defensive team, but they are a fast-paced team. They were towards the top of the league in pace last year. I really wouldn't expect much to change this season. I like Dragic a lot at 5,800. I think without Jimmy Butler, he should be probably priced like around the 7K range, and for only 5,800, he is definitely coming in underpriced on the slate. So I do like him a lot with Jimmy Butler out today. And I think Tyler Hero is going to benefit as well. Tyler Hero has not gotten off to a great start this year, has not been very good through two games, just 25 and 19 Draftkings points, and he's played 32 minutes in both those games. But now with a high-usage player like Jimmy Butler off the floor, that's just going to allow a guy like Tyler Hero to get more shots up, to have the ball in his hands more. He hasn't shot very well to start the season, but eventually the dude's going to start making shots. We saw how good he played in the bubble last year. This is still a guy that has a lot of upside. For 5,700, if I had to choose between one of him or Dragic, I think I would rather play Dragic, but I have no problems playing both guys. Both guys didn't see their price rise enough, in my opinion. Hero should probably be like 6,500. Dragic should probably be like 7K, so we are definitely getting a discount on both these two guys. I do like Tyler Hero as well at 5,700 on DK, and I don't mind him on Yahoo either. There's some other guys I like on Yahoo that we'll talk about, but if you want to play Hero, he's only $21 at shooting guard. Definitely someone you could look to over there. But scrolling down and looking for some other point guard options, I think without Karl-Anthony Towns, Ricky Rubio should benefit. Rubio's a guy that can be productive when he gets minutes. It's tough to tell what his minutes are going to be like. He is coming off the bench for this Timberwolves team. He played 25 and 27 minutes in their first two games, and then last game against the Lakers, which was a big blowout, he only played 18 minutes. But he should get probably mid to high 20s in minutes off the bench. Without Towns, that's just more usage for a guy like Ricky Rubio to soak up. Rubio is a guy that, like I said, can be productive when he gets minutes. At 5,500, the price came down. I actually have some interest in Ricky Rubio. I don't mind him as well in the 5K range. I would feel better about Dragic and Hero, but I don't mind Rubio either if you do want to go to him. Elfrid Payton's coming off a really big game where he played 29 minutes, had 43 Draftkings points. On this slate, on this 10-game slate, I don't think I want to chase that Elfrid Payton game. I think there are some other guys I'd rather look to. We do have to keep an eye on the status of Alec Burks. He is questionable right now, if I believe. I saw that Burks is questionable for this game. Yeah, Burks is questionable, so if Burks winds up missing, then yeah, that would definitely be a boost for Payton, and he would become a much better option. But as of now, I think I'd rather go to Dragic and Hero. Between him or Rubio, he's probably going to come in much lower owned, so I would rather go to Rubio. Rubio, that is, will probably come in much lower owned than Payton. So for that reason, I don't mind Payton, but it's kind of a wait and see for me, see how this slate shakes out. If Burks winds up out, then yeah, I would be a lot more interested in Elfrid Payton. But Looking below 5K, if we're talking about value plays here, DeLon Wright I liked a lot on Monday slate without Derrick Rose, but now that Derrick Rose is expected back, probably won't really be looking at DeLon Wright. I think George Hill is still a fine option. He's going to start and probably play mid to high 20s in minutes. He had another solid game on Monday night. This is a back-to-back, so there's at least a chance that he rests this game and he gets ruled out. But assuming that George Hill does play for 4,800 for a guy that's close to a fantasy point per minute player and is going to play mid to high 20s minutes, he's not the worst option at 4,800. But really, I think that's probably it for point guard. I don't see really much else that stands out here. Like Kendrick Nunn would normally be a guy to target when Jimmy Butler's out, but Nunn just hasn't been getting really any minutes this season. He didn't play at all in their last game against the Pelicans. He only played 8 minutes in their season opener. Hard to trust Kendrick Nunn, and at 4K, I'm just not going to play him. If he was minimum salary, maybe you could take a shot on him, but I'm not really going to go to Nunn unless by some chance he winds up starting. Then, Kendrick Nunn will become a much better option if he winds up starting. But, with him coming off the bench, if he does come off the bench, we just don't really know what his minutes are going to look like. He could play 20 minutes off the bench. He could not play at all. We don't really know here. So, unless he starts, I'm probably not going to go to Kendrick Nunn, even with Jimmy Butler out. Really, I think that's it for point guard. Dante Exum, I think, is worth mentioning just because after Kevin Love got injured in their most recent game, Dante Exum did start the second half in place of Kevin Love, and Love has already been ruled out for this game. So Isaac Okoro, I believe, is out as well. So maybe Dante Exum starts here. If he does wind up starting for 3,300, he'd be a value play worth considering, but I don't expect him to start. That will at least be something, though, that we do need to monitor. And luckily, this is one of the first games on the slate, so we should have that news before lock. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to shooting guard, guys. We'll talk about the shooting guard position. So Bradley Beal, Devin Booker at the top. Not really guys I have a ton of interest here. I think there's just other guys I'd rather spend for on the slate. Probably would rather play, Russell Westbrook, who we talked about. Would rather play Steph Curry. Paul George, though, is someone I'm potentially going to have interest in. We'll have to keep an eye on the status of Kawhi Leonard. Leonard is questionable for this game with a mouth injury. He did practice on Monday, which makes me assume that he plays here. But if Kawhi Leonard does wind up out, I don't know if we'll have that news before lock, but if he winds up out, Paul George would become a much more appealing option at 8,500. Just without Kawhi on the floor, George is going to soak up a ton of usage, going to have the opportunity to get way more shots up. He was really good in their first 2 games. Last game against Dallas with Kawhi out, Paul George was terrible in that game. The Clippers just got absolutely blown out by the Mavs. I don't really want to put too much stock into that one. So if Kawhi's out and PG, plays, which he will, if Kawhi's out, I do like PG a lot here at 8,500. I'm assuming he gets his full minutes here. I wouldn't be too worried about blowout. Honestly, I would want Kawhi to miss this game because I think it's more likely this game stays close if Kawhi is out, which makes it more likely, those Timberwolves guys like D'Angelo Russell, Ricky Rubio, some other guys we'll talk about, they're going to get their full minutes if it stays close. So honestly, I kind of want Kawhi to be out so the game can stay close, which would make me like Paul George a lot more and would make me more confident that D'Angelo Russell plays his full minutes. So that'll just be dependent on what happens with Kawhi Leonard. If he's out, definitely have interest in Paul George. Zach LaVine, I do have interest in against the Wizards. Great matchup here. LaVine finally had a big game after 2 disappointing games to start the year. Finally had a big game last game against the Warriors. 52 Draftkings points in 35 minutes. That's the kind of upside that Zach LaVine has. This is a guy that can drop 50 Draftkings points basically any night. And against the Wizards, like I said, a team that plays fast, a team that's not very good defensively, definitely a spot where we could see another 50-point game from Zach LaVine. So I do like him quite a bit at 8,400. It's close between him or Paul George. I think if Kawhi winds up out, I'd prefer Paul George. But, Zach LaVine, definitely a guy you could look to at 8,400. Not much else stands out in the mid-range. Like Kobe White we talked about, I have interest in. I do like him at 6,500. Scrolling down, though, I think Malik Beasley does benefit with Karl-Anthony Towns out. He's 5,900. He's not that cheap, but the guy's a productive player. He's getting big minutes on this Timberwolves team. As long as the game stays close, I would expect probably 33 to 34 minutes from Malik Beasley. And with no Towns, should get more usage, should have the opportunity to get more shots up. I don't mind him at 5,900 if you want to go to him in that 5K range. Anthony Edwards as well, another guy that should just get more opportunity, more shot attempts with a high usage player like Towns off the floor. And Edwards has been getting solid minutes, played 29 in their last game. He seems likely to play probably mid to high 20s in minutes off the bench. He's been really relatively productive on a point per minute basis so far this year with the Timberwolves. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but still I don't mind Anthony Edwards. There's definitely just a lot of guys I have interest in from the Timberwolves today. Scrolling down, like with no Jimmy Butler, I think Duncan Robinson is worth considering at 5K. If I can find the salary, I feel much better about Tyler Hero, much better about Goran Dragic, but don't mind Robinson at 5K if you want to go to him. George Hill we talked about, you could play. Luingsdor, I don't mind at 4,600. He's going to start, play big minutes. He's been productive so far for the Thunder this year, and doesn't really surprise me since, they have no Schroeder, no Paul, no Gallo. Like, that's just a lot of usage that's gone off this team. You're seeing SGA soak up a ton of usage. Baisley, Horford will get some opportunity, but Dort definitely gets opportunity as well in this Thunder offense, and we know the minutes are going to be there. He's locked into pretty big minutes on a nightly basis. So at 4,600, someone you could consider as sort of a cheaper play at the shooting guard position. But really, I think that's it for shooting guard. I think we kind of covered everything here, talked about the plays that really stand out the most. So let's go ahead and move on to the small forward position. So at the top of small forward, there really isn't much that stands out to me. Like Kawhi, if he plays at 9,400, I think there's just other ways I'd rather go. Ben Simmons against Toronto, not the biggest fan of. Jason Tatum against Indy. I mean, you can always play Jason Tatum, but this doesn't feel like a slate where I'm really going to be going out of my way to play Jason Tatum. I think at small forward, like probably my favorite option. I mean, really, there's no guys I love at the top, but if I had to pick one, I think it probably would be Brandon Ingram. I just like his matchup the most against Phoenix. Ingram has shown a lot of upside this season. This is a guy that can, drop 50 DK points any night. He's another high-usage player, even playing alongside Zion, playing alongside Lonzo, Eric Bledsoe. Like, Ingram can still go out there and produce on a nightly basis. We know he's going to play big minutes as long as the game stays close, and this should be a great game environment, fast-paced game, should be competitive against the Suns. I do have interest in Brandon Ingram, but that's really only if I'm looking to pay up at small forward. Looking at the slate as a whole, though, he wouldn't be like one of my top studs. I think there's just other guys that I would rather pay for, especially at center. We'll talk about. I do like some of the top center options today. But yeah, really not much stands out at the top at small forward or really in the mid-range. It's kind of just a gross position overall. Like Jeremy Grant, I think is fine to go to, but with Blake Griffin back for 6,500, I don't know if I really want to pay that price tag for Jeremy Grant. Blake missed their last game, but I'm assuming he's going to be back here. I mean, like Malik Beasley, you can play at 5,900. I don't mind him if you want to go to him. Anthony Edwards as well for 5,400 you could look to. But if we're talking about, cheaper options, if we're scrolling down to small forward, looking for guys under 5K that are playable, we talked about Dort. You could look to at 4,600. I mean, Josh Jackson I liked a lot on Monday's slate, but that was just because Blake Griffin was out. With Blake Griffin expected to play, really don't have much interest in Josh Jackson. I mean, I guess Jarrett Culver is fine. You could look to him. Probably going to play low to mid-20s in minutes off the bench with no cap. Should be a little bit more productive coming off the bench, but, at 4,500, it's not like he's really that cheap. I mean, small forward just kind of sucks today. There's really no guys that just stand out head and shoulders above the rest. I think in the mid-range, like Beasley, Edwards, these are the kind of guys that stand out. If you can pay up, I do have interest in Brandon Ingram, Chris Middleton, Jaylen Brown, RJ Barrett. Like, these aren't guys that really just stand out and feel like must plays, feel like guys I have to have. Really, I'm kind of fine whatever small forward fits in my lineup. Definitely a position we'll kind of have to wait and see on. Maybe some value will open up here, but really not much stands out at the small forward position. So let's go ahead and move on to power forward. We'll talk about power forward now. So at the top, you got Giannis for 10,800. Definitely think Giannis is one of the stronger pay-up options on this slate. I know he hasn't been great to start the year, but this is still probably the highest usage player in the league. I mean, this is a guy that is going to produce on a nightly basis, going to give you 50-plus DK points on a nightly basis. If the game stays close, which this one should against the Heat, you're going to get probably 33, 34 minutes from Giannis. He played 32 minutes in a relatively, I wouldn't say close game against the Knicks, but a game where they lost by 20, he still played 32 minutes. A game against Boston that was close, he played 36 minutes. I believe that game might have went to overtime. I'm not exactly sure, but if this game is close, we should get probably 32, 34 minutes from Giannis, and with how productive of a player this guy is, at 10,800, he's still probably underpriced for just the amount of upside that he has. Like, if you look at I would say 9K and above options, like from Booker up to Giannis, I think Giannis would probably be my favorite of all the 9K guys. I do prefer him over Jokic. Second favorite would probably be Russell Westbrook, and then Steph Curry, but Giannis definitely is the guy I like most, like on the slate as a whole, and just in terms of stud options. Like, we don't really have any of the other studs that we consider, like Harden, not on this slate, LeBron, AD, not on this slate. There's some other big-time pay-up options, Trae Young, not on this slate. So Definitely Giannis looks like one of the better pay-up options if you can spend up. But this is a slate where the mid-range is really strong, especially like at guard and at center. There are some good pay-up options at center. I don't know how much I'm going to pay up for Giannis on this slate, but I guess if I can, if some value opens up and it's easier to pay up for studs, Giannis will probably be one of the first guys that I try and get into my build. But looking in the mid-range, I do like Julius Randle at 8,200. Julius Randle, he's just going to be a monster this year with the Knicks. First two games against Philly and against the Pacers were solid, 39 DK points, but had a massive game last game against the Bucks, 61 DK points in 37 minutes. Like, this is just a guy that's incredibly productive when he's on the floor, can score, can rebound, can get assists, can just stuff the stat sheet. Against the Cavs, a bad defensive team, a team we can definitely pick on. I do like Julius Randle quite a bit here at 8,200. Wish he was a little bit cheaper. You know, the price tag did come up $500, but still, he's a guy we'll be looking to at the top at 8,200. You know, scrolling down, don't mind Zion either at 8,100, but I think I'd probably rather prefer Julius Randle over Zion. You know, in the 6K range, I think with Kevin Love already ruled out, Larry Nance does stand to benefit with Kevin Love out. He most likely will start in place of Kevin Love. 6,300 though, that's still a lot to pay for Larry Nance. I know he had a big game in their opener against the Hornets when Kevin Love was out. But then last game against Philly, I think Love played that game, but he got hurt like in the second half and missed a lot in the second half. You know, Nance is going to benefit without Love. He's going to play bigger minutes, but at 6,300, I mean, he still needs to score like over 40 DK points to kind of be a guy that you like have to have at this price tag. You know, if Nance was like 5K today, he would definitely be one of my top options, but at 6,300, price tag's probably just a little bit too high for me. Even with Kevin Love out, he's not like a core play by any means. Darius Bazley, I do like quite a bit. You know, on DraftKings where he's 5,800, not as appealing, but on Yahoo, I don't know why. They're just slow to price up Darius Bazley. He's still only $14 over there, which is just way too cheap. I mean, the guy's going to be productive this year. He didn't have the best game on Monday night against the Jazz, but that was kind of a tougher matchup. You know, this isn't the best spot overall against the Magic either, but still, we know what we're going to get from Darius Bazley. He's going to start, probably play 32 to 34 minutes. He's a fantasy point per minute player, should give you probably 25 to 30 fantasy points most nights, if not more than that. And for only $14 on Yahoo, I'm looking for about 25 to 30 fantasy points from him at that price, and I think he can easily get that here. He's just too cheap in my opinion. He should be like $20, $22 on Yahoo, so at 14, he's still way too cheap. I do like Darius Bazley quite a bit as a value option at the power forward position on Yahoo. You know, on DraftKings at 5,800, probably not going to pay that price tag for him. More of a guy that I'll be looking to over on Yahoo, given his price over there. But scrolling down a little bit more power forward, you know, not much else stands out. Like once you get to Paul Millsap, but once you get under Paul Millsap, there are some guys I do like here. So first off, we'll talk about Naz Reid, 5,100 on DK, very cheap on Yahoo, a guy that I like a ton on this slate. So he is center on Yahoo, which is worth noting, but he's still cheap over there, only $13. So with Karl-Anthony Towns out for the next couple of weeks, I am expecting Naz Reid to start in place of Karl-Anthony Towns. He started in place of Towns in that game against the Lakers, and he played 28 minutes, was pretty productive with 27 DK points, 11 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in those 27 minutes. He did have 5 fouls. I'm not sure if he lost minutes because of those fouls, but I think most games Naz Reid is going to start and probably play 30, 32 minutes while Karl-Anthony Towns is out, and this is a guy that can be very productive when he gets minutes. He's a fantasy point per minute player. Kind of reminds me of like a Montrezl Harrell, just a guy that brings a lot of energy, can score, can rebound, is always under the glass fighting for rebounds. I like him a lot at 5,100. He did get priced up, but honestly, in my opinion, he didn't get priced up enough. Like he should probably be 5,500, close to 6K. I think we're still getting a little bit of a discount on Naz Reid, so I like him a lot here with Karl-Anthony Towns out. He is definitely a guy that I will be looking to on both sides. And on DraftKings, you can play him at power forward, which does make him a very appealing option. He's only at center only on Yahoo, but even on Yahoo where he's center only, I still have a lot of interest in him over there because he's $13, which is just a really cheap price tag for Naz Reid now that he is starting in place of Towns. But under 5K, if we're talking about cheaper options, value plays at power forward, I mean, not much really stands out. I don't mind Nicholas Batum. As long as Marcus Morris is still out, Batum's going to start and probably play 30, 32 minutes. Only 22 in their last game, but that was because of the blowout. We saw that Batum can be productive when he's getting solid minutes in their first 2 games. Should get, like I said, 30, 32 minutes here as long as Marcus Morris is out again. I believe Morris I believe Morris already has been ruled out, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check that real quick just to make sure. Yeah, so he's already been ruled out, so Batum should continue to start, probably play about 30 minutes if the game stays close. Not the worst value play at 4,500, but still not like a core value by any means. Hopefully some better value will open up as the day goes on Tuesday, and we'll get some injury news. But yeah, I think that's probably it for power forward. I think that's what really stands out to me. Let's go ahead and move on to the center position. We'll talk about center real quick before we do end the video. So at the top here, you got Giannis, or not Giannis, or you do have Giannis, but I've already mentioned him. You got Jokic at 10,200. You got Joel Embiid at 9,800. Some of the top options here. Really don't have a ton of interest in either guy. Jokic I think is playable just about any slate, but on this one I think I'd rather get up to Giannis if I can. Joel Embiid, not the biggest fan of against the Raptors, just not the best matchup overall for him. He just feels a little bit too expensive for me given that matchup. Andre Drummond though, I do have a lot of interest in today. 8,700 on DK. I think that price tag honestly feels a little bit too low. On Yahoo, he's more expensive over there. It's $45, but I still like Drummond a lot, even at the $45 salary on Yahoo. So with Kevin Love already ruled out for this game, Drummond sees a very sizable boost with Kevin Love off the floor. We saw that in their last game against Philly. He really smashed in that game. I know Love played, but I think Love missed like the second half or something. He had a big game against Detroit, and that was a game I believe Love played in. And then against the Hornets, Love was out that game, but Drummond was in foul trouble. Just didn't play, his full allotment of minutes. This is a guy that when he gets his minutes, when he's playing his full minutes, which I think if this game stays close, which it should against the Knicks, we're probably getting 35, 36 minutes from Drummond. He's a very, very productive player. We know this is a guy that pretty much is a lock to get a double-double. He's going to get you 20 and 10 almost every night. Obviously, he has the upside for way more than that. Can definitely get you 20 and 20. He can chip in with some assists as well. Should have more opportunity for the offense to run through him now that Kevin Love is out. And the defensive stats are another thing. Like Drummond is a guy that can get 3-4 steals, 3 or 4 blocks. Just has massive upside. Can easily score 50, 60 DK points against this bad Knicks team. And with no Kevin Love, he should not be 8,700 in my opinion. He should be like 9K, 9,500. We are definitely getting Drummond at a discount. So I do like Drummond a ton at the top of the center position. He is a guy that I like a lot if I am paying up at center. Definitely my favorite pay-up option at the position overall. But, other guys like Randall we talked about, I like. Zion, I don't mind either. Without Jimmy Butler, I think Bam does see a sizable boost. He did get priced up to 8K, but still, with no Butler, Bam should see a bump in usage, should just see the offense have to run through him more. This is a guy, kind of like Drummond, can just stuff the stat sheet, can give you points, rebounds, can chip in with assists as well, and Bam is another guy that can get those defensive stats. So I do have interest in him at 8K. If I can find the salary, probably would rather get up to Drummond, but don't mind Bam at 8K at all with Jimmy Butler out for this game. Thomas Bryant, love the matchup for him against the Bulls. On DraftKings, he's a little bit too expensive for me, but on Yahoo, he is very affordable. On Yahoo, Thomas Bryant, only $19 over there. Same price as Wendell Carter. Same price as Steven Adams. Same price as Tristan Thompson. Really like Thomas Bryant on Yahoo at only $19. If you watched my videos last year, you know that I look to target the Bulls with opposing big men. They're just not a good defensive team against bigs. They're a pretty bad rebounding team as well. Really don't expect too much to change this year. So good spot for Thomas Bryant. Like him more on Yahoo, but definitely someone I will be considering on the slate. Larry Nance we talked about should benefit without Kevin Love, but a little bit too expensive on DraftKings in my opinion at 6,300. Looking 6K and below, Mason Plumlee just continues to produce on a nightly basis. He's going to get 32, 34 minutes most nights. When he's playing those minutes, he's going to give you 30 plus DK points against the Warriors. Pretty favorable matchup. I do have interest in Mason Plumlee. Wish he was a little bit cheaper, but still a guy that you can consider if you are looking to someone in that 5K range. Probably one of my favorite centers in that 5K range besides, Naz Reid that you can play at center. Really not much else stands out in the 5K range. If we're talking about value plays, if we're looking below 5K, there's really no cheap options that stand out. Like Hassan Whiteside is really cheap, but he's just not getting a ton of minutes. Like he's only going to play 10 to 15 minutes off the bench. If he were to see starters minutes, like if something were to happen to Rashawn Holmes, then yeah, Whiteside would become a much more appealing option. But while Rashawn Holmes is healthy and is starting, Whiteside, in my opinion, doesn't really have a ton of fantasy value. So even at a cheap price, I don't think he's really a guy I'm going to be looking to. really there isn't a ton of value at center unless you consider Naz Reid a value at 5,100. He'd be probably the cheapest guy that I would look to. So, yeah, I think we covered center, guys. I think we broke everything down for Tuesday's Big 10 game slate. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I do greatly appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed, hit that like button before you get out of here. Hit the subscribe button as well. Be sure to click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. And I did forget to say this at the beginning of the video, but if you want to check out my Patreon exclusive content, that is linked down below in the description. I do have a lot of additional content over there. I give a lot of up-to-date content, core plays. I have my rankings, my player pool, all that is posted over on Patreon. So if you want to check that out, it is linked down below in the description if that's something that does interest you. But best of luck on the slate, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you win some money. Good luck, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.